Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Pheasant Fluff, and in today's video I had a really cool idea about making a doll inspired off of a Kestrel Falcon. Kestrels have always been one of my most favored birds ever, and I thought making a doll of one would be really fun, so I went to the store and this is the doll that I picked up. I didn't have a bunch of options, but her skin color and her body type was what I needed, and I thought that it would be perfect. So the very first thing I did was I sanded down her seam lines just because I wanted to give her a much more like smooth look. And for the kind of like underwear pattern that is pre-made on them, I'm going to sculpt over that so I didn't like really do anything with it. But now that she is all sanded, we really need to take care of this bird's nest on top of her head. So in the sketch I made, her hair is so much different. It's not only a different color, but it's slicked back. But before we really do anything, what we need to get out of the way are these ears. So what I did was I took an X-Acto knife and basically just chopped those things off. And it turned out pretty perfect since her hair is so thick you can't see the holes in her head, so I didn't have to end up filling them. But before we do anything else with this hair, I really wanted to get rid of all of the factory paint on her face. And to achieve this, what we are going to need is a bottle of acetone. And it's really simple. You see all sorts of doll channels doing this. You get acetone in a napkin and then you just shove it on the face and out comes probably the funniest thing that I've seen in my life. And my favorite thing about Monster High dolls is once you remove the paint, you can just see how beautifully their faces are sculpted. And this thing? Oh, I'm keeping this. This is like a treasure that you don't get to see very often. Alright, so now that that is over with, we need to cut this hair. It's supposed to be really short, and for the excess hair, I am going to end up keeping it just in case I need it for another project someday. Now, in the sketch, her hair is supposed to be slicked back and kind of like, I don't even know, like, jutting out at the sides? I don't know what this style is supposed to be called, but either way, I don't have any gel, so what I did was I put a hair tie back so I could kind of see what I wanted it to look like, and for all you doll people out there that know how this is supposed to be done, please don't come for me for this. I don't know how to style dolls. So I ended up just painting her hair black. I didn't have any extra hair or hair dye or hair plugging tools. I just kind of had to use what was at my disposal. And so I'm just waiting for it to dry and I'm fraying out the edges to match the design as it dries so they'll stay in place. But wow, does it just look so, like, cursed. So even though I did this in literally the worst way possible, it turned out pretty okay. I love the swoop in the back, the ends are pretty frayed, if that's even the word to call it, and I would say it was kind of a success other than her hair is like super hard and you can't really like brush it or do anything with it. It's kind of almost like she's wearing a really weird helmet. So I cleaned her up a bit, and I'm not gonna lie, this actually worked pretty well. The rubber band really kept the hair in shape, including me kind of molding it as it was drying, and drying did take forever, so I really don't recommend doing this. But once her hair dried, it was finally ready to start painting, and these are all just really, like, cheap acrylic paints that I got from Walmart. Nothing fancy, but it'll do the job. So I got to mixing the paints and I put on a first kind of base layer. So this is basically to tell me like where the colors are supposed to go. It was really haphazard, not really perfect, but this is just the first layer like I said, so it'll get a lot better over time. And this is the second layer. I put sealant over the first one and went over my guidelines with a lot more saturated color, and I started getting her face done too, and it's so cool because it's starting to look like this sketch. Oh, I'm so happy with this so far. Although one thing that is always inevitable is that acrylic paint will always chip around the joints. It doesn't matter how much sealant or how much paint you use, it'll always chip, and that's exactly why I got the skin tone of doll, so if it did chip, it wouldn't look that bad. But either way, now that this is done, I am gonna get started on the face. Although, before I did that, I really did want to add some more feathery details on the body. I really just couldn't resist. So what I'm going to be using for her face are some Prismacolor colored pencils and also this really cool like rainbow palette that I have of just eyeshadows to help like give her blush and some really smooth color gradients. So the very first thing I did was I blushed the yellow around her nose and on her cheeks, then I went on the eyes with some orange, and I also started sketching in other things with the colored pencils. And then after some sealant, I went in with some acrylic paint to make things pop. And after the face up, here is the doll fully painted with her spots and her facial markings and everything. I also painted her hair gray on the top so it would match the forehead a little bit. And I'm not gonna lie, this is the best doll I've ever made in my entire life. Taking your time really does help with projects like these. In the morning, I went outside and used some nice air dry clay to get her body modifications like her ears, tail, arm feathers, and also these feet. While I was outside, I also used some really thin like paper cardboard to layer on and make her wings, which I started painting. Thank you, boyfriend, for filming me paint. After this, I attached the wings and I also made a little tail out of the same material as the wings and painted and attached that as well. And I know in the sketch I didn't give her any clothes, but I thought it would be a cool addition to give her a little bit more personality, and I have also a bunch of scrap fabric in my room that I thought would pair with her really nicely. So we're going to be making her a little like bag and also a skirt. And if any of you guys are curious, all of the materials I have been using for this doll, including the doll, have been gotten from thrift stores and also just local Walmarts. But before I make the clothes, I really wanted to work on these little hair feather thingies that I drew on her face. So I got 3 pieces of this yarn-like twine, I'm not really sure what it is, but I taped it down to my desk and then I got some black paint and started painting on the little stripes. And right after this, I started getting ready to make her clothes, and I'm not much of a sewer, so I did use a lot of hot glue. So, very unfortunate news. I'm not sure, but I lost a lot of the footage of making the clothing, but either way, here's the finished doll. I am absolutely so proud of myself for how this doll turned out. This is the first doll I ever really took my time on. I gave her this beautiful sketch and she just absolutely came alive. I feel like every ounce of her gives personality and she just breathes life into this look, including the little saddlebag I gave her, which houses all these different letters that she gives to these kingdoms and peoples all over the land. But either way, that's it for now, until another doll.